Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
I can see in the next 6 months, the market's just going to go gangbusters.
Well, that's real interesting, but here's my thoughts. Why take risk with your money when you don't have to?
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
In 2007, ironically, right before one of the biggest stock market crashes in recent memory, I asked 3 of my retired clients to provide me their take on the stock market and how they felt about investing their life savings in it. And these 3 savers had this to say.
At our age, we just don't want to be on the roller coaster of the stock market anymore.
I'm not satisfied with my mutual funds at all.
When you work as hard as you have worked to save the amount of money that you have for your retirement, you do want to be able to start enjoying a little bit of that money, not to totally wipe out everything that you've saved.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it's kind of what I'm hearing today, as countless savers in fear that we might be in for another 2008, when back then the market crashed more than 50%, could be in for a rough ride as well. Now, lest we forget that many of you who were on the younger side weathered these huge declines back in the 401k days of the 2008 era. But back then, you got to think about it. Many of you were in your 40s or 50s. Now, assuming you are retired or nearing retirement, what if we do have another huge dip in the market at a time when you are needing to withdraw money out of that 401k to live on? Do you realize what a disaster that will be to take money out of a tax-infested 401k if the values of those 401ks are plummeting? In fact, let's take a look at what would actually happen. As you can see from this graphic, back in 2005, we imagined someone had $300,000 and they needed $20,000 out per year, so they're retired. In that year, they would have made around 5%, took out their $20,000, and they have a balance of about $293,000. Next year, they start with a balance of $293,000. They make almost 16% in the market, still take out their $20,000, and lo and behold, because they did so well that year, their balance is now $316,000. The following year, 2007, they have $316,000, they make over 5%, take out their $20,000, and voila, they still have more than they started with. But now, let's take a look at 2008 when the S&P went down 37%. Well, of course, they still need their $20,000. And what happened to their balance at the end of the year with that huge drop in the stock market? That balance fell to $184,000. Not what I would call worry-free. So what's the answer to being worry-free in retirement? Well, if you're a saver, you've got to ask yourself this most important question. Why take risk with your money when you don't have to? Well, today, my friend, you're in luck because when I return, together we will answer this age-old question by sharing with you how we, at Tony Walker Financial, are able to help so many savers worry less about money by taking less risk with it. So stay tuned. I'm Tony Walker. We'll be right back. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for over 40 years I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To see if you can retire now, take advantage of our free 10-minute fiduciary phone call with me, Tony Walker, by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 877-499-9255. Welcome back to the Worry-Free Retirement. As we talk about this concept of the stock market and savers who are nearing retirement getting into the stock market or maybe staying in the stock market, Kind of a warning shot over the bow. As we like to say at Tony Walker Financial, why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? And again, as we're recording this show in late March of 2025, I know there's a lot of uncertainty. The market's dipped. It's coming back. That's really not the point, folks. The Worry-Free Retirement is all about safeguarding your money and then having that written game plan so you're not out here chasing returns and taking all of this unnecessary risk. And might I remind you about this powerful graphic? Now, we're going to go back, and I don't know if this will happen again. That's not the point. The point is this could happen, and if you're a saver nearing retirement or in retirement, why would you potentially want to set yourself up for this? If we go all the way back to October 9th of 2007, that's back when the Dow was around 14,000. It was at all-time highs. I remember this, folks. I've been in this business since 1984, so I remember all these times, and I certainly remember this time. And all of a sudden, the market started dropping. Well, guess what everybody did? Most people, we weren't in the market back then. We were putting people into fixed products so they had no risk. Most people kept saying, well, I'm just going to see what happens. I'm going to see what happens. Well, I'll tell you what happened. It went all the way down and lost over, depending on your circumstances, lost over 50% of its value. Now, that was fine back in 07 if you were 40 or 45 years of age. But folks, we're in 2025. All these baby boomers are retiring. All these people are now in retirement. And you've got to ask yourself, if you needed this money and you had to start taking money out, well, that would be a disaster. And look how long it took to get back to even break even. And you say, well, Tony, wasn't this an anomaly? I mean, that's not going to happen again. Let's look at this graphic, a very powerful graphic. Don't go to the next slide yet, Derek. I want to show you something. If you go all the way back to 1919, look at all of the negatives, okay? These are all the times, and look at the number of days that the stock market was in a negative. Folks, this can happen. It has happened, and in the future it will. The problem is nobody can tell you when it will happen. Now, let's look at more recent, from 2000 to roughly 2020. From 2000 to 2002, if you had $1 million or whatever, it would have gone down about $400,000. Over that period of time. Look at that. In 2007 to 2009, the period of time we just covered, if you had $1 million, you're down to $500,000. Now keep in mind too, if you had a 401k or IRA with this money, which is where most people have their money, you haven't even paid the taxes yet. The taxes could be another 20 or 30% of it. You see where we're going with this. Plus, if you were taking out money, you'd be out of money probably in 5 to 10 years under this scenario. And then finally, people forget about in August of 2020, the market went down over 33%. So you say, well, what's the point, Tony? The point is with the Worry-Free Retirement, we take a whole different take on money. We believe that enough money is enough, depending on your circumstances. That's what we do as planners. Folks, we're retirement planning specialists first. We do the investments second. Many of you have been told that the investments is what you need. You have to take risk in order to combat inflation and have enough money. Nothing could be further from the truth. We prove this day in and day out. This is why you need a game plan. So here's the next step. If you're a saver and retired or retiring soon, and you like this thought of taking less risk, of having just as much money without all this risk, but needing that game plan, that's where we can help. So to take advantage of talking to me by phone, we call this the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. To set up this time, all you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that Let's Get Started button, and we will arrange that phone call. Obviously, the internet's not your thing and you just want to give us a call, feel free to do so anytime at 877-499-9255. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Wes Walker, one of the fiduciaries on staff, and wanted to take a moment to talk to you about this concept of letting the buyer beware. So with 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day, there are many different advisors pitching many different products to that segment of the population. In particular, they're prescribing things like structured products. I've talked about these in the past, but what they are, they're basically a fixed income product that's coupled with a derivative, and they're pitched as a safe investment, earning oftentimes double-digit yields. Well, there's a catch that is often not prescribed or not told by the advisor. they can have massive downside risk, particularly if you want to get out of the structured product prior to its maturity. In fact, we had a client come over from a different institution. She wanted out of this product, and in her case, they were only offering her 4% of what she originally put in if we were to sell it into the open market. So numerically, if she put in $100,000, we'd only get $4,000 out of what she put in to begin with. Obviously not a great deal. Also, even more nefariously, we've seen a string of advisors opening up client accounts and then paying off their older investors with the new client money. Now, this scheme that was made famous by Charles Ponzi in the 1920s and made infamous by Bernie Madoff in 2008 is what's known as a Ponzi scheme. It's a very old concept in which you, like I said, pay off new investors with old investors' money. They almost inevitably will collapse upon themselves, but we're seeing a resurgence of this age-old fraud come back into the fray today. So how could you protect yourself as an investor from getting involved in one of these? Well, something to look for is that whenever you cut a check to an advisor, it should never be in that advisor's name. For instance, you would never write a check to Tony Walker Financial. Instead, you would write a check to Charles Schwab as the custodian of your investment account, or to an insurance company if we're recommending you go with an annuity or life insurance. I hope this tip helps, and if you're ever being pitched a product that you feel unsure of or would like a second opinion on, please never hesitate to reach out to myself or one of our other salaried fiduciaries at Tony Walker Financial. Thanks so much.
Tired of the roller coaster ride of the stock market? Let Tony Walker show you how to smooth out the ride with your money. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started.
In the late great Benjamin Graham's classic, The Intelligent Investor, Graham reminds the reader that most savers, including my granddad, who witnessed during the Great Depression a stock market decline of more than 80%, were left to conclude the following. Investing in the stock market, to them, was nothing more than gambling with their money. And while we certainly do not have any issues with our saver clients giving us permission to put some, let me repeat, some of their money into the stock market, I do feel that most savers today are no different than the savers of yesterday. Savers do not like putting a lot of their money at risk, especially those who are retired or nearing retirement. When I posed to savers meeting with me this very question, why are you taking risk with your money when you don't have to? Most of them respond kind of like this, because I've always been told I have to. So what changed from a time when savers looked at investing in the stock market as a gamble to now blindly risking all of their life savings in it? It was the introduction of Wall Street to the saver vis-a-vis the 401k plan. You see, prior to the introduction of the 401k plan, most savers, like my granddad, didn't have access to the stock market. That was those for the rich folks who had more money than they knew what to do with. The 401k allowed Joe Lunchbox to now invest small amounts of money into something called mutual funds, which are essentially stocks and bonds. This introducing Joe Lunchbox to risk now made it a part of his life and risk that he didn't really know what to do with. The loss of these guaranteed pensions, or what we like to call was replaced with risky stocks and bonds. Years ago, I was invited to speak to a large conference of advisors regarding my thoughts on retirement planning for savers. At the conclusion of my talk, an advisor asked me what types of clients we worked with at Tony Walker Financial. I responded, those who have enough. Puzzled by my response, I went on to describe to him what I'm about to describe to you. I call it the 5 types of people money in retirement. So let's take a look at the first one. The first type of people money is that individual that basically has no money. This is a person that literally is almost destitute. That would be the person that has, again, no money. The second type of people money is those who basically have some money. Now, this would be those people that they might consider themselves living paycheck to paycheck, but at least they're able to make it. A lot of these people do not have money to save for retirement. It's almost impossible, so they just live paycheck to paycheck. Now, the third category is probably the one we most focus on, and that's the clientele that what we call have enough money. These would be people that have properly funded their 401ks. They have money in savings, possibly have a pension, have Social Security that's somewhat adequate. These are people that can retire worry-free. They just don't know it yet until they go through an analysis with us. So again, we're looking for those who have enough money. Now it gets kind of interesting. The fourth type of people money are those with funny money. You know, as we record this show in April of 2025 and the market crashing and going up and down and like a roller coaster, people with funny money really aren't that concerned about it. In fact, I've talked with a few people that are multimillionaires and they're like, I don't care if it drops 20% or not. The reason they don't care is it doesn't really affect them. For our people that have just enough money, to lose 20% of their value during retirement is not good enough at all. And then finally, this is the most interesting group. It's a very small percentage of our population. These are the people that have silly money. This would be the example I remember years ago when I attended a conference at the Ocean Reef Resort down near Key Largo, Florida, and I noticed all these huge yachts and this outlandish lifestyle that a lot of these people lived. And so I asked one of the servers at this resort, who are these people that live here? And he said, well, we like to put it this way. At the Ocean Reef Resort, this is where the billionaires go to get away from the millionaires. Oh, speaking of silly money, check out what one of the big boys on Wall Street just paid to acquire a competitor. $2.7 billion in cash. And here's another example of silly money. Here's a firm who paid their two executives a bonus of $80 million. When was the last time you and I got a bonus of $80 million? That's what we call silly money, and it's just a reminder of what this money game is all about with these big financial institutions who are basically out looking for more and more money. To them, it's never enough. They just keep wanting more and more of it. So let's get back to you folks that fall into this saver category of the people we're looking for, those who have enough money, those who just want to have enough money to comfortably retire. And of course, those savers who have enough money that they realize they don't need to be taking all of this risk to pull it off. If that's you, you and I need to talk. And we've made this very easy to do. In fact, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. And here's how this works. Let's say you are retired or nearing retirement. Maybe you've got a 401k or an IRA, or maybe you've realized that you're just taking too much risk with your money. So what you would do is you would log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. There's a little button there that says, Let's Get Started. Now, when you click on that button, that is confidentially sent to our offices, and we will arrange this phone call with you and I. It takes about 10 minutes. And if after that phone call, I think I can be of help to you, guess what? We are going to meet in person. That's right. You and the owner of the company for about 30 minutes to find out how we can help. And then we will put together this free proprietary game plan that no other advisor has. I know that because we created the software. Then we will have a second appointment where I will deliver my findings to you. Now, here's the fun part about this meeting. There's no pressure. This is absolutely free. You will get to take that game plan and study it to make sure it's what you want. If you want to follow through and do business with us, obviously we'll move into high gear. We'll take care of all the issues. We'll roll over the 401k. We'll transfer the money to the custodians. We will handle everything and get all that under one roof so you can be worry-free in retirement. Again, it's a free service to take advantage of. And maybe that's you right now and you say, well, I'd like to take advantage of this, but I don't know if I want to enter anything on the internet. Well, just give us a call anytime. Our number is 877-499-9255. Well, I'm Tony Walker. This is the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. It is estimated that each day over 11,000 people will turn 65, which means a lot of advisors selling a lot of annuities. Don't get stuck in the wrong annuity. Get a second opinion from TonyWalkerFinancial.com.
Hi, this is Lisa here at Tony Walker Financial with today's most common Social Security question. Will distributions from my individual retirement account affect my Social Security benefits? Social Security does not count pension payments, annuities, or the interest or dividends from your savings and investments as earnings. They do not lower your Social Security retirement benefits. However, IRA distributions can be considered taxable income and will be included in your adjusted gross income for the current tax year. They are not considered to be earned income, so they won't have any effect on your ability to claim and collect Social Security as far as the annual earnings test, but they can result in your Social Security benefits being taxed.
Who can you trust? It's one of the most important decisions you'll have to make. Question is, are you ready? Well, we're here to help at Tony Walker Financial. You know, we care more about you than we do your money, and we have over 3,500 happy clients and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau to prove it. Rolling over a 401k, confused about Social Security, maybe you're afraid of running out of money. Learn how to use and enjoy and protect your hard-earned money. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com and let's get started. Our Tony Walker Financial Client Spotlight today shines brightly on Warren and Betty Henning.
I was born and grew up in San Antonio, Texas. We currently live in Kentucky, in Henry County. There's no real town around, so
I happened to be in the house one day watching TV on a Saturday, and was flipping channels, and Tony was on. And I started listening to him, and whenever he started telling about his concepts, and he started hitting the biblical approach to savings and retirement, that's whenever I said, this is the guy I want to sit down and talk to. And I'll never forget the first meeting with Tony. He asked me one of those questions, why are you here? I want to know if I'm okay or not. Will I have enough money in retirement? And that's one of the things that he's really helped us with. When I knew I was going to retire, I got talking to some of the guys, and they got telling me about people making maple syrup. And the process with it, and just the whole thing started intriguing me. This year we got into maple syrup, making our own maple syrup, and we just love it. It's 220 acres, 100 of it pastures, 120 of it woods, and it's a beautiful lifestyle.
I think as retirement came around, it gave me more time to think about what I really enjoyed doing. So it's, like I said, not a one-size-fits-all, but who are you and what do you enjoy doing, and find where you can plug in.
Looking for an advisor you can trust? Schedule your free phone call with Tony at TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call 1-877-499-9255.
Welcome back to the WorryFree Retirement with the money missionary himself, Tony Walker.
As we think about this concept of accumulating more money by taking more risk, this notion of the 5 types of people money, as I like to call it, becomes even more relevant as we explore what the Bible has to say about both. Just like today, the Bible is clear that back then there were also 5 types of people money. Those on the one end of the spectrum that had to beg for their daily portion, kind of like this fellow described in John chapter 9, verse 8, and those with silly money, like King Solomon, who had more silly money than he knew what to do with. And yet, as Jesus reminds us in Matthew 6:34, that whether someone has very little or has a lot doesn't really matter, because to all this issue of not knowing what tomorrow may bring is a truth to behold. Can anyone say 2008? So what is a Christian to do in walking the fine line of being a good steward and saving for the future, while at the same time not worrying about it? Well, let's turn to our good friend Charles Spurgeon for some help on this topic as he shares with us in his morning and evening devotional the daily provision of king and servant in this example of 2 Kings 25:30, where the verse simply states, "Day by day the king gave Jehoshaphat," boy, having trouble saying that one.
How do you say it?
Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim.
Some may also pronounce it as Jehoiakim.
Jehoiakim. Yeah, Jehoiakim.
And now you know.
All right, let's try this again. Day by day, the king gave Jehoiakim a regular allowance as long as he lived. Sounds like this fellow Jehoiakim might like the sound of something we send to our clients each day.
Mailbox money.
Of this idea of the king providing Jehoiakim his daily allowance, Spurgeon says this: "If we have enough for each day as the days arrive, we shall never know want." Translation according to Tony: God knows what we need before we need it, and outside these bare necessities, all the rest of our needs simply become wants. And isn't that the source of our worries? Not God providing for our daily needs, but you and I trying to plan for tomorrow's wants, all the while forgetting it is God who provides for them both. It was Jesus who reminded his children that if God will take care of the daily needs of the lilies and the birds, how much more will he be faithful to take care of our daily needs as well? But oh, how soon we forget this basic of all truths about money. Not that we do not have our needs met today, which we do, but that we are fearful that God will not provide for the needs of tomorrow. So what are we to do to eliminate the worries of tomorrow? Well, Jesus tells us in Luke 12:15, where he reminds us that our lives do not consist in the abundance of our possessions. Translation again, according to Tony, whether you fall on the one end of the spectrum of having no money, or on the other end of the money spectrum and enjoying all the silly money one can stand, be careful in thinking that your life represents the amount of money you might be able to spend tomorrow, and instead learn to be more content with your Lord satisfying the needs of today. Paul mentions in Philippians 4:12 that we are to be content in whatever we do, whether it's no money or silly money. Now, wait a minute, you say, Tony, we're not to plan for tomorrow? Well, of course we are, but never forget to live for today. Be content with what you have, and if you're a saver, ask yourself, why are you so worried about your money? Could it be that you are taking too much risk with your money when you don't have to? Well, if that's you, might I suggest that you take on an attitude of thanksgiving, thanking God for what he will provide you today and what he has already planned to give you tomorrow. You do this each day, and I assure you that the worries of tomorrow will begin to grow strangely dim. Amen? Well, speaking of being worried about tomorrow, I've got a question for you right now. A question I've asked throughout this show. Why in the world are you taking risks with your hard-earned money when you don't have to? Could it be that you've never met with an experienced retirement planning firm, someone who has been doing retirement planning long before most advisors even knew what retirement planning was? A firm whose owner not only continues to oversee the company, but whose owner will meet with you in person. That owner is me, Tony Walker, someone who has personally overseen more than 5,000 written game plans, met in person with more than 20,000 savers, and who oversees an operation that includes 19 full-time employees, 3 of which are salaried fiduciaries charged with one mission in mind, and that's helping you stay on track in your retirement. So regardless of whether you are already retired or thinking of retiring in the near future, let's talk. And we've made this so easy to do, and best of all, it's free. That's right, we call it the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. To take advantage of talking to me by phone to see if we can be of help, all you do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little button there, and we will arrange that phone call. Now, internet may not be your thing. That's okay. We've got operators standing by 24/7 to take your call to arrange the phone call with you and I. That phone number is 877-499-9255. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But you remember, between now and then, if all else fails, you be worry-free and you make it a good one.